Shut up! The Decline of Usability Revisited, in which we once more delve into the world of user interface design. Ooh, this is very exciting. Autumn 2023. 3 years ago, I wrote a rant about the problems of our current UI paradigm. Hold on, let me just take off dark readers, because it does make his website look like it's designed with poop. Okay, so without dark readers on, I do at least minimally want to throw out here that it is kind of funny that we have a rant about current UI design while on like 3 gradients of gray, 4 separate grays on here. Okay, it's not like the site's beautiful. Okay, I'm just saying. The site's not beautiful telling me about UI paradigm problems, okay? There's something funny about that. The complaints voiced were hardly new or unique. Neither was the text what I considered my best writing. It was honestly mostly a way to blow off steam. It seems I struck a nerve, though, because it's proven to be one of the most popular texts I've published here. For some time, I've thought about writing a follow-up, and a recent resurgence in the text popularity prompted me to finally do so. All right. I have a lot of opinions about UI. You know, as someone who doesn't like programming the UI, I have a lot of opinions about it, which is kind of funny. I'm not sure if is that normal? Is that a normal thing to have? I always feel like every time I use anything with UIs, I have like 100 opinions about it. But it's just like, hey, do you want to program UIs? And I'm like, I'm fine, dog. Thank you, man. Hey, thanks for the offer, but nah, I don't want none of that. All right, I didn't and still don't have any delusions about my rambling will somehow affect anything. And in 3 years' time, nothing indeed has changed. Oopsies, I put has in the wrong order. At least not for the better. The most depressing part is perhaps that the debate around these issues hasn't changed one iota either. The same non-arguments crop up all the time when discussing these ideas. Well, Grams, maybe things aren't super duper great in the past either. Where's the research, dude? It's progress, man. Progress. You can't stop progress. Actually, compadre, we can do so much stuff with computers nowadays. That's usability, brosif. True. You know, but I will say that the past wasn't great. You know, I'm under no delusion that the past wasn't great. I'm going to say something that is going to hurt some people's feelings, and I'm just willing to say it, okay? There's really only been one company that has consistently been able to create things for the most part that has remained good feeling software, okay? There's only one company that I know of, and the company is not a good company. Apple? No, Apple certainly hasn't. Apple's had many problems for a long time. Palantir, nice. Microsoft? No, not Microsoft. Nintendo. Nintendo generally has been able to create a bunch of machines that when you still use them, you're like, these are very good. They've done a good job. Yeah? Oh, no, I can understand you don't like Nintendo, the company. It doesn't hurt my feelings. But Nintendo, the product, they've done a very good job. You can still throw on your Nintendo 3DS, and it's still great. Don't talk about the Wii U. The Wii U was revolutionary, and you know it, and I know it. Okay, the Wii U walked so that the Switch could run. Nintendo UX is terrible? No, it's not. You guys crazy if you think it's terrible. You can still destroy all modern tech equipment with a Game Boy from the 80s. Yeah. Except their online play. That's so annoying to connect to anything. Okay, yes, that's true. Okay, up until then, still my Wii U was actually quite amazing. Whether you like it or not, Wii U was fantastic. All right, anyways, what are we talking about? Usability, as defined by Wikipedia, is the capacity of a system to provide a condition for its users to perform the task safely, effectively, and efficiently while enjoying the experience. Do you really have to enjoy the experience for it to be usable? This seems like a bad definition. Can we all agree that this last part is not in the word usability? Right? Because I don't think, like, you could make a really usable ticketing system that's not Jira, and I would still not enjoy it. Like, I wouldn't be like, ooh, I'm enjoying making these tickets, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. I don't think you have to have enjoyability. Anyways, its a relation to software is further specified. In software engineering, usability is the degree to which a software can be used by specific consumers to achieve quantitative objectives with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction in a quantified context of use. I believe the term would be a qualified context of use. Can you really come out with, like, satisfaction in a quantified? Like, I'm going to give you a number of satisfaction. I am satisfied 7 units of satisfaction. 7 out of 10 units of satisfy have just happened in my bones. after using your software. Isn't that like definitionally qualify? That was a long sentence, not ADHD proof. True. Qualify. Anyways, let's go on. Let's go on with Wikipedia. The primary notion of usability is that the object designed with a generalized user psychology and physiology in mind. For example, okay, I'm not really sure what that even means, but okay. My psychology and my physiology is in mind for you. More efficient to use, takes less time to accomplish a particular task, easier to learn. Operation can be learned by observing the object. More satisfying to use. Okay. I mean, generally speaking, if despite my specific nits, I agree with everything being stated. Okay, we know what usability. We're all on the same page now. In short, usability is the ease with which a predetermined task can be accomplished. Consequently, it looks fresh isn't usability, it's aesthetics. Likewise, the lack of a specific program feature isn't the same as being able to use it easily, efficiently, and safely as possible. Looking for the power switch on a hand-cranked drill is silly, but maybe we should complain if we had to operate power tools with our pinkies. Okay, yeah, okay, this makes sense. I agree with the general argument. It's not about the lack of features. It's not about all these things. It's about the tool specifically. Okay, same team. Similarly, a word processor without a mail merge function is perhaps intended for other types of word processing, such as writing novels. Hence, being usable in many different situations isn't automatically the same as having high level of usability. Conceptual consistency. In my original text, some arguments deal with static GUI design, such as low contrast or excessive use of screen real estate, but many do not. Some are about consistency over time, consistency across applications, consistency across platforms. Consistency across platforms is always a bit strange, just because you don't really want to be like super. I mean, you want to have like consistent branding or consistent coloring, but that's aesthetic, right? That's not usability. Because however you program a phone, you don't want that to be how your website operates. Bro said GUI. No, I said GUI. Okay. Specifically, I said GUI, not GUI. Okay. I'm not going to call it a GUI. Not going to happen. Okay? You understand me? We're not calling things GUIs around here. Pure static GUI design is a subset of usability. Poor design choices such as low contrast and illegible fonts will lead to worse usability. It is, however, not always clear where to draw a line between what we call a GUI toolkit design, UI design, usability, and UX. It's true. I don't know where. I don't even know what people are talking about these days. I thought UX would encompass UI design and usability. Like I thought UX equaled these two right there. One affects the others, or roughly in the order listed from the ground up. All three forms of consistency across time, applications, and platform were, until roughly the release of Windows 8, honored by most major vendors. When I talked about consistency, it's not to be understood as the exact same look, widget for widget, and icon for icon. It means adhering to basic standard principles of operation. One such example are the File, Edit, View, Help drop-down menus, recognizable between different operating system programs and UI toolkits. Sure, Java Swing looked a bit different in Win32, but they were still based around the same basic notions and concepts as all other toolkits on the market. All right, the young Zoomers, do you have any idea what this even is? Young programming Zoomers who've just used Ubuntu, do you even know what a file? Do you even know what those are? Do you have any idea what those things are? I don't think I have any idea what those things are. Yeah, man, I grew up with those. I grew up with those. A toolbar, Arch Linux users, yeah. I don't even have one of those bars. How do I even access one of those? Is he talking about the buttons from Google Docs? Is that what he's saying? Press Alt, 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 Alt. Press it, hold it, tap it, slap it. Brother, I don't know what you're talking about. Ew. This is not to say consistency always trumps everything else. Sometimes real improvements of usability can be attained through a complete interface overhaul. Windows 95 is a good example of that. I don't know. I have a special place in my heart for Windows 3.1. Okay? I have a special place in my heart because I went hard on Mahjong Tiles, Doom, and Freeski. Was it really that bad? I don't know if I even remember how to use Windows 3.1. But I loved it. I was out there free skiing so hard. It was very, very good. Please don't ever talk about accessibility on this Twitch channel. What does that even mean? Okay, everybody, I'm not allowed to talk about it. From here on out, we only do things for people who aren't colorblind. From here on out, okay? I hate colorblind people. I hate them, and this channel hates them too. The only thing that's accessible is these nuts on your chin. Show us the research, dude. In discussions like these, there's usually at least one person who shows up demanding data or research, but curiously never presents anything back with their own claims about modern UI superiority. By the way, whenever someone says show us the research, like, does your entire life require some sort of study to prove what you think is true or false? You know, there's like the whole like replication crisis that goes on in psychology. Do you really, does everything need to have a paper? This is the weirdest part about modernity, is this like this mentality. Everything's like, yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't seen a paper on what you're talking about yet. And it's just like, really? Just like, does everything in your life have to have a paper? It's just weird. Scientifically, yes. Yeah, 90% of your life is not science. In fact, I would argue that even more than 90% is probably not science. Most of your stuff is just nonsense. To be honest, papers and reproducibility are at risk. Yes, I know. I'm not even saying this, like, not everything has to be this way. You know, sometimes you can just operate on your gut and it's just like, it's mostly okay. It's like mostly there. Like, do you really need to be told everything via a white paper? And here's the thing is that so many people, you see this all the time, ask for studies, but I don't know like a single person that actually reads studies. So I sit here and I like just, you know, I just like try to like reconcile these two things that happen where there's this constant demand for it, but no one actually reads white papers. And so you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you, dog. Yeah, baby. No, totally. But by all means, the concepts I have championed have been around for decades. Many of them have been studied in detail. Some of them even build on ideas as old or older than computers themselves. One such concept is that of affordances, meaning how the look and shape of certain objects communicate information about how an object can be operated. A push button that protrudes from the surrounding surface, for example. Some affordances come more or less naturally, such as a taper and a curve of a knife blade indicating the location of the sharpened edge. True. Okay, facts. Today, it just seems like we never use buttons that have any sort of like indication, right? We don't really have a protruding aspect, right? You go to almost all websites. How about Laravel, right? Is it Laravel.com or .what? .com? A lot of these things, you don't see a protrusion here, right? Oh my gosh. Dude, I hate virtual scrolling. Just like generally speaking, I am not a virtual scroll boy, okay? I do not like virtual scrolling. I think life would be better, right? It's like, right? You don't even see like that one's, I'm barely even getting a highlight right here, right? This is pretty normal at this point. You just got like a little surrounded thing. All right, I'll show you a protrusion. Okay, hey, let's do this. Everyone hates virtual scrolling. I think virtual scrolling is the devil. Okay, like this is cool. Like I admit that this is a cool like idea, but it just makes me want to throw punch it because if I scroll at all, it's just like because you know, usability, man. Usability, man, or something like that. Anyways. Affordances can be constructed in computer interfaces with skeuomorphism. All right, hit me with the Wikipedia. Skeuomorph is a derivative object that retains ornamental design cues, attributes from structures that were necessary in the original. Skeuomorphs are typically used to make something new feel familiar in an effort to speed understanding and acclimation. Huh. Okay. So they're the in-between state, because I know you're showing me those like a little electric light and light bulbs, but nothing says that they have to be in light bulbs. But I'm also not quite sure if okay, interesting, very interesting. Okay, I understand it. I hear what you're saying. It seems weird. I've never heard that term, by the way. Where'd we go? Where did we go? Oh, shoot. Let's go back, and then we have to go back this way. I just realized I closed the thing. Okay. These are fundamental concepts in all types of industry design and have been for a long time. Another example is why the Mac, Atari, and Amiga all put the menu bar at the top of the screen. It's an oft-used target and should be easy to move the pointer to. This is an adaptation of Fitts' Law. Okay. This is clearly a D's nuts joke. Like, you can tell right away. This is a D's nuts joke, and we're about to fall for it. Fitts' law is a predictive model of human movement primarily used in human computing interaction and ergonomics. The law predicts that the time required to rapidly move to a target area is a function of the ratio between the distance to the target and the width of the target. Oh, okay, so Fitts' law is why I'm bad at first-person shooters. Oh, okay. Okay, I get that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so there's an equation out there that actually describes how bad I am. That's cool. Glad that there's science. Hey, it looks like there's a white paper, boys, on that one. Now we can all feel good about that one. I don't know. I don't really, I guess at this point in my life, I don't really think a lot about top bars anymore. You know what I mean? Like, top bars are there for menus that I don't know, and that's it. And a lot of times, even in Zen, if you want to do stuff, where is the icon to do stuff, right? Where is the stuff? I guess it's in the top bar, and that's how you find settings, the top right or the top left. I'm used to things over in the top left. Like, my old brain always looks right here. In New World, you don't look over there. I don't know. Weird times. Is that really like a problem, though? Is that really like a usability problem? I don't know. Industry standards. The basic construction of this menu bar, starting with the file edit, was invented at Apple and introduced with the Lisa in 1983. It was then picked up in some similar fashion by nearly all desktops following it. Windows, Mac, Gem, Amiga, OS2. The list goes on until it converged almost completely. Another widespread source of influence was IBM Common User Access. By the way, I'm using Hyperland and Arch, and I don't got one of those, so maybe it's not like that widespread. Us Arch users are like the normal one, right? We're like the most dominant form of computer usage, I assume, in 1987, which, among other things, introduced a kind of keyboard shortcuts that we're familiar with, and the ellipses to indicate menu choices that opened a dialogue. It is kind of wild. Hold on one second. There's something's happening. Hold on. Okay, it was nothing. I know what's going on out there. It is kind of funny that, like, why does the bar have to be at the top? I always have this problem with, whatever Apple decided during the first one, isn't that just kind of what became the way? Like, I'm not one that thinks that you can only do things a certain way. That's kind of just like how we're used to it, more than because of Fitts' law. It's not because of Fitts' law. Well, like, why does the top bar have anything different than the bottom bar? The article just explained it. But why male models? But I'm more convinced that it's because that's what it is. Like, because a drop down needs to drop down. Well, can't it be a drop up? Probably because you start reading from the top. So why take up valuable user space then? If you read from the top, why take up the top? Because the top is greater than the bottom mathematically. Not if you're an OpenGL, loser. Not if you're in the standard top. What's it called? Top left is 0, 0. It's actually the other way around, okay? The start menu is technically a drop up. Phones generally have buttons at the bottom, yeah. Well, they also have buttons at the top, too. Phones have buttons everywhere. Prime, do you know that there's going to be a premium version of Hyperland? Yeah. That's pretty cool. Good job, premium version of Hyperland, man. CDE, the Common Desktop Environment, was an effort of several major Unix vendors to standardize a graphical environment across platforms. How'd that go, loser? I love hearing the word something standardizing across Unix environments. Oh gosh, now that's a good joke. That is a joke right there. This was adopted by at least Sun, Hewlett Packard, IBM, DEC, including OpenVMS, Fujitsu, SCO, and for a short time, Silicon Graphics. In short, anyone claiming that there weren't efforts in creating and maintaining an industry standard regarding UI design is either deeply ignorant or blatantly dishonest. Or, like, I just am not convinced that this is real. I think this could also just be simply just an observation onto people realizing that other people are doing something, therefore they're going to do it. Like, who here, okay, because you could say the same thing. Here's a good example. Who here has been to Netflix recently? Okay, so if you've been to Netflix recently, you'll notice that it has a certain kind of layout and all that. Amazon Prime now looks so close to what Netflix looks like that when I use Amazon Prime, I recently had an experience in which I was confused and thought I was in Amazon or in Netflix, and I quit it to reopen up Amazon Prime, and it was like, oh crap, no, I'm already in Amazon Prime. I was just confused. And so it's like, is it industry standard now to call it like Netflix, or is the industry just following the person that is the leader in the industry and calling that an industry standard? I am much more convinced that this and how we do things is not because there's some sort of standard that the industry has set. First off, the industry is filled with a bunch of companies that if they could, they would most certainly kill the other company immediately. You think IBM wouldn't love to see Apple just fall apart, or any of these other companies doing computers just wouldn't love to see these things just explode? They all were hoping for the other one's downfall, but they're all striving towards being the most usable, and by the most usable being like the most whatever everyone is thinking of, right? Yeah. There's no industry standard. There's none. Maybe Netflix copied Prime. Love you, Bezos. No, Netflix did not copy Prime. Don't be dumb, right? It's just stupid. They're like this whole notion is just I feel like this last line is either deeply ignorant or blatantly dishonest to think that there was just that these things somehow existed. I'm not quite convinced of that. Further principles. A lot of my complaints can be described as the 13 Principles of Display Design from a book, Introduction to Human Factor Engineering by Christopher D. Wickens. Wow. Sally E. Gordon and Yili Liu. I'll be using the Wikipedia summary principles here. Number 2, avoid absolute judgment limits. Do not ask the user to determine the level of variable based on a single sensory variable. I don't even know what that means, to tell you the truth. Similarity causes confusion. Use distinguishable elements. Okay, that's fair. That's a good one. Principle pictorial realism. A display should look like the variable that it represents. Okay. Does that explain the little floppy disk for the save icon? Because, bro, my computer got floppy disks on it. No, it makes sense. Okay, I totally get. I actually agree with this. Okay, I totally agree with this. That's why every AI company has butthole logos, because they're all a bunch of buttholes. Both judgment limits and similarity apply to window focus indicators. A clearly visible title bar and border in distinctly different colors from the surrounding windows is dissimilarity that makes the active window stand out, making it easier to identify. I agree with that in the sense that when I look right here, it's very easy to understand that I have this window as my active one because it has that little blue. So I'm actually all about that. Right, I'm all about that. Totally on team. That makes sense. Okay, cool. All 3 principles apply to icons. They used to be colorful little works of art, using both shape and color to make them discernible. Even during the monochrome days, most of them were carefully drawn, pixel by pixel, to represent something clearly distinguishable and identifiable. Today's icons are often extremely stylized to the point of being meaningless, at least without knowing what their predecessors once looked like. Decoupled or coupled with design that often makes the point of using monochrome icons in low contrast colors, they blur together into an indistinguishable mass of similar-looking geometric primitives. Yeah, there's definitely like a modernization to a lot of these icons. Fair, I guess. And they kind of lose shape, but there's something about it that's also appealing. I just somehow disagree with this idea that just because things have been like reduced in look somehow makes them less good. I don't know, right? I'm not quite convinced about that. Consider the below icons from Microsoft Outlook. Okay, first off, using Microsoft as an example or a beacon or anything when it comes to design is just a fool's errand, okay? Microsoft's been known as a lot of things, but it's not been a pinnacle of man's achievement when it comes to design. For example, what is the archive icon even supposed to depict? A filing box that people would put their tax receipts in, usually filled with manila envelopes. I am in fact right. Update. All right, hold on. The lower part of a printer with a sheet of paper sticking out. Dude, that is so funny. This is so funny reading that guy never did taxes, never lived in the 90s. That's what this is from. This is like, if you lived in the 90s, if you exist in the 90s, it's a box filing cabinet. Dude, it's so funny. Like, that is so good. I'm loving that tax evasion, by the way. A box to store papers. People used to store manila envelopes and stuff with taxes and information on there. Update, June 2025. Several friendly readers have pointed out it's a banker's box. Thanks. I've updated. Let's see. I've since expanded on the pitfalls and purpose of icons in this text. Again, I think that this is actually a perfect example of him self-owning himself and then ignoring the fact that he self-owned himself. First, he said that people used to take time to think about what they mean, doing this thing right here, the principle of pictorial realism, right? But because the people that used to use computers in the 90s were people who would be very, very familiar with this exact thing where you put all your tax documents and all this. This actually is a very, very close one-to-one thing. This is how you archived your stuff, is in these specific boxes. And so this is definitely like a generational problem right here. I only happen to know about that because when I was a kiddo, we got audited. My dad died, so the government did the only reasonable thing to do, which is right after your dad dies, you try to audit them and take everything from them because that's what you got to do, right? You got to strike while the iron's hot, as they say. And so I only knew about all these boxes because I started seeing all these boxes appear, and my dad was pretty meticulous at keeping a bunch of information for taxes and all that. And so it's just like all of a sudden I got deeply familiar with it as a child, so I knew right away what this thing was. Sweep is most likely a broom. Nah, that's not a broom. Obviously, that's a plunger. Like, who thinks that sweep is a broom? What idiot thinks that that's a broom? But would like you to determine, let's see. But would you be able to determine that without text? In the lower bar, that's probably a flag that might also be a sketch of, or a sketch by Mondrian. Oh, this flag? Yeah, this flag right here, I assume is what he's saying. I have honestly zero idea what the rightmost icon is supposed to resemble. This? Thermometer. Settings. I assume this is supposed to be settings. This is supposed to be shouting out on Twitch. This is drugs or sex. Not even, dude, they don't even know what they're designing in this one, okay? This is just like, I don't even know. This is also settings, which is not different settings than these ones. These are two different sets of settings. Notifications, easy, calendar, chat, got them. But I mean, okay, so like a good example of what he's saying, or something that kind of disproves what he's saying, is think about this right here. You first had to invent chat for this to make any sort of sense. Would you, like, before you went on, like, even if you were on AOL back in the day, if you remember AOL and all the spaces that chat about, this icon to represent chat would have been super confusing because it just didn't even exist at the time. You know what I mean? Like that icon couldn't even have existed to represent chat at one point. All right. Non-standard and poor. Consider GNOME's human interface guidelines. Their basic principles aren't all bad, but once a program grows more complex, they break down fast. The end result for both developers, designers, and users, the word both and then naming three different people is always funny, dude, I do this all the time, is conceptual poverty. Damn, that's crazy term, conceptual poverty. Dude, I'm having a strong case of conceptual poverty until there's some gifted subs. Oh, nice. Yeah. Just some conceptual poverty going on right now. By that I mean, the developers using only GNOME are likely to start losing valuable concepts when thinking about UI and thus program design. Take Blender, for example. By the way, Blender is what has been historically known as the single worst interface of all time. The below screenshot was kindly provided by a friend who is a professional graphics artist. Yes, it looks complex, but that's because modern graphics creation is a highly complex process. Blender has a massive feature set and a plethora of parameters that can and must be tweaked to create the kind of stunning 3D scenes we've come to expect. I think we need more menus. That was pre-2.8, I think. Yeah, pre-2.8. GIMP is the worst indeed. GIMP is pretty bad. GIMP is pretty dang bad. I honestly can't see how a program like Blender could possibly be created using GNOME's guidelines, or indeed Toolkit. Certain time-tested UI elements aren't even allowed in GNOME anymore, such as menu bars or hierarchical pull-down menus. Oh, you can't have hierarchical pull-down menus? That's kind of wild. Like, hierarchical pull-down menus, I can definitely see as being like a good thing. I use those. Have you seen Google Cloud's platform? It's worse. Yeah. Have you been on Amazon? Dude, I still don't. Amazon, it just requires you to use AWS for years just to get good at not getting confused as to where you're at. I never use AWS enough, and so every time I use it, I'm just like, I'm about to relearn everything, and that's that. Progressive disclosure and the prevailing interpretation of navigation structure means completely replacing certain parts of the interface with others, instead of letting the users decide what's relevant for them to see at any given moment. Frequently used actions should be close at hand, but in a program like Blender, frequently used actions vary profoundly with what kind of project is being worked on and what stage of the project it is in. I find it unlikely that a developer can make such judgment calls better than a user spending tens of thousands of hours in the program during the span of a career. Then again, focus on one situation, one type of experience is rather telling. Using software professionally isn't about having a chick. Wait, what? Having a chick boutique experience? I don't know what that means. I don't know what a chick boutique with a comma in betwixt. Chic? Oh, chic. I didn't know that's how you spell chic. Okay, there you go. Today I learned TIL. Overpriced. A chic experience. It's about getting the job done as quickly and efficiently as possible. Sometimes that means working with irreducible complexity. Yeah, but if that was the case, then, I mean, like, let's be honest. If that was the case, then everyone would just use a terminal, right? Like, terminals for, like, 98% of things is by far the objective best way to use stuff, right? It just is. You should be using keyboards for everything. I mean, I'm a terminal boy. The terminal is obviously part of my personality, but that's one of those things that it just kind of feels. I don't know if people use software just because it's the most streamlined. I think a lot of people, like, a good example of this is people who use Mac keep transition times on. People who use Hyperland leave animations on, right? Right? So if I go in here and I go to here and I go like this, I go, what's it called? Hyperland, this animation, and I go to yes, please. You know, and then I hit with one of these bad boys. Like, people actually want that. Like, I don't want that. Dude, I don't want animations. Yo, no, I don't like this. But people like that kind of stuff. People do like chic and boutique and Miss Monique that we're having playing right now in our ears, right? Sorry, just kept rhyming all the way. I didn't realize that chic and boutique rhymed until I said it out loud. And so, yeah, there you go. I prefer it snappy. A little animation's good. No, dude, I don't. I'd like this. I want epilepsy. Like, if I don't have epilepsy, then this isn't a good experience. Okay? Just sorry, you're wrong. If you aren't moving that fast, you're wrong. All right. This applies to a multitude of other profession software titles used in actual productive work, whether it's photo editing, CAD, software development, or corporate management. There has been efforts to modernize the UI, for example, Excel, but in contrast to Teams. The olden ways still, I actually don't know what he's trying to say here. I think Google Sheets is a great experience, except for they've recently changed how scripts work, and now I don't know how to get a script to work anymore. I don't know about that. The olden ways are still prevalent in Microsoft spreadsheet offering. I dare say it's impossible to replace its pull-down menus, floating settings windows, and other time-tested concepts because the program is too complex and too powerful to fit into any dumbed-down modern paradigm. Incidentally, Outlook is perhaps now at a point where it combines the worst of both worlds. Again, you're using Microsoft as like an example or a jump-off point. I just don't think these are great examples. I don't think Excel is great no matter what. I think you could make things a little bit nicer. Microsoft products are huge. They are huge, but they're not beautiful. I've never looked at a Microsoft product and been like, now, girl, that's design. Damn, girl, that's design right there. That's the point? No, that's not the point. That's what? Dude, imagine what you're saying. Yo, Microsoft, that's not what they do, okay? What? They don't try to make things, like, look good, okay, or feel good, okay? They're there to be hard. It's Microsoft, bro. Dude, I'm getting one guide so hard. Okay, hey, Krivix, appreciate the one guy, but I got one guy very, very hard. That's not the point of Microsoft. That's Apple's job to make things, I want to be able to do something in a couple clicks. Yeah, right. Okay, hey, what we need is menus on menus and several clicks and a wizard before we get to the point of doing something. Absolutely ridiculous. Getting old. I personally, in some capacity, used Amiga Workbench, Atari, Gem, TOS, Mac OS Classic, Mac OS X versions, Windows 3.1. Oh, my baby boy. 9595 was so cool. but my mom got mad at me because I turned off the computer without going to the start menu and doing shutdown because apparently that was bad for the computer. I didn't know. I had no idea. 98, NT4, 2000, XP, Vista 7, 8, and 10, SGI's Indigo, Magic, Suns, OpenLook, BOS, CDE, OS2, Warp, Next Step, Risk OS, GNOME, 1, 2, 3, KDE, various versions, Plan 9, and probably a handful more. I've used computers for 35 years and worked as a software developer for a quarter century. I've used a wide variety of software packages for photo editing, image creation, 3D graphics, spreadsheets, word processing, text editing, composing music, sound editing, desktop publishing, online communication, and software development, to name a few. In short, I think it's safe to say that I have some experience with user interfaces and experimenting my way around systems and programs. I do have to say that the counter is that often I find people who use things a lot don't necessarily have a good good opinion of what good is, right? I don't think using something a bunch means that you have a good idea, right? Like I often find that when I use Vim and I build a plugin, I go, oh, that's wrong. In fact, I often have to, like this right here, this little sweet little split the baby right here and jump over here and do that thing, or even more so in here and just kind of split the screen and do this. How long? You guys watched me make this. You guys watched me make this little Tmux thing. That little thing took me like 4 different versions to get to the point where I got it to where I liked. It actually took me, it actually was the opposite. I inherently did not know what was the good experience with this. In fact, it took me quite a few swings before I understood what good was. And so I don't think the using something a bunch, it's the same thing with Harpoon. Harpoon took me quite a bit of time before I said, okay, this is what Harpoon is, right? It's actually really hard to figure out what good is. When I hear this as your version for credibility, I don't think this is a good example. I think that I have a better version of credibility. So let me hit you with this one. Let me hit you with my version of credibility. I built Harpoon and Tmux Sessionizer. There you go. That's my version of credibility. I've built 2 things that have really great usability for dev productivity, that are unique and kind of by themselves, in which people have created various versions of them. I'm not talking about how long I've been programming. I didn't say, hey, I programmed on Netflix for 10 years. I didn't hit any of those things. I simply just talked about, here is why I think I'm good at dev productivity tools. I built 2 tools that I think are very high in dev productivity. You do say that a lot, though. Fair. That's fair. With the exception of Plan 9 and Risk OS, all those systems and majority of the applications running on them were instantly recognizable and usable for me up until roughly the release of GNOME 3 and Windows 8. Of course, they each had their own quirks and idiosyncrasies, but the mental model I had built when using one system was easily translated to all other ones. Okay, let me hit you with the inverse. I can easily, in some sense, defeat this argument. I don't believe I have code on this system, but I do have cursor on this system. So if I open up cursor, due to the fact that this is whatever you call this dumb program, VS Code, effectively, VS Code has so many options that I get super confused as to how to do anything. Like, I don't know how to make the font bigger because Control Plus and Control scroll wheel don't do it, and there's so many options that I don't know how to I don't know how to get out of here, and I don't know what to do. And I sometimes find myself very confused using this because I don't have enough practice in it. But some people would say that this is a very comfortable. Some people would say this is very comfortable and a nice using program that's easy to use and has a lot of usability. You know, people will tell you all the time that they use That they use. Oh, look at this. Zoom in. There we go. That using VS Code, they use VS Code because Vim is too hard. But I would argue the opposite. I think that Vim is easy, and I think that VS Code is hard to use. And so just because you have like an immediate understanding of one program, I think that speaks more to your familiarity with a concept than it does about the program being bad or good. Right? Like, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think there's a whole bunch of people that have used Windows 8, Windows 8, 10, and 11. And if they were to use Windows 95, they'd be like, yeah, everything, like, I kind of understand where it came from, but like, I'm super confused. I don't understand anything. Right? And they could feel very confused. Well, apparently I missed a few things. I'm not exactly sure how I missed a few things. It must have, you hit tab at some point to skip a link. Oh, I hit, suddenly a new article. Suddenly a new article. Crazy. But either way, I didn't realize that. Didn't realize that happened because we went from here into this last part. Okay, crazy. But nonetheless, the big argument that he's making is that there's things that were very immediately usable and things that aren't immediately usable. And so it's the same argument. TJ and I have both made this exact same argument at some level, which is that we've both been confused by things like VS Code. VS Code feels confusing to us, and that's because we're used to a certain way of developing, whereas VS Code may not feel confusing to other people. It may feel really like at home, or maybe it is more inherently makes sense. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, I hear you. I understand what you're attempting to say. I don't think that I can. Sorry, hold on. I'm going to turn this off. There we go. It's one of those things where experience, it's what you're used to that really kind of sells you. I wouldn't even call it Stockholm Syndrome, even though that's funny to call it Stockholm Syndrome. It's just what you're used to. And so if you've just grown up using VS Code, then VS Code feels really normal. And something like IntelliJ would feel very complex. Right? They'd be like, oh, IntelliJ is way too hard. I like VS Code because it makes way more sense. Or no, Vim seems so confusing. I remember when I first went from IntelliJ to Vim, one of my hardest things I had with going from there is because I had no sex, right? I had no horizontal split, or technically it's a vertical split explorer on the side. And so because I had none of this, I didn't know what to do, right? Sex, well, that's the command you do to open it, right? It's sex bang. See, that's the command. I had none of this. And so this makes you feel more at home, right? Because so many people are used to using an editor where they have a tree view on the side, right? And so if you don't have a tree view, you feel more like discombobulated using an editor, right? Yeah, see, it's sex bang, right? And it opens right there because just regular sex goes right there. You don't want that. And then X is the whole window, which you definitely don't want, right? You definitely don't want that. Because I still haven't been able to shake off NVim tree. Yeah, like it's a totally normal experience. Some people would argue, I bet you this guy may argue that having a file tree is actually like usability. I would argue it's not usability. I would actually argue that having a file tree open at all times is just wasting valuable screen state, right? It's adding a bunch of visual fluff that probably you just don't need your brain to process. I would argue that doing something like Zen mode would be significantly better than having a file tree, right? Just reduce the noise that exists. Anyways, let's see. With the exception of, Plan 9 and Risco as all those subsystems, wait, did I already read that? I could swiftly accomplish basic tasks in programming on various platforms, including management of programs themselves, such as determining the window was focused, what was a button and not, how to find advanced features, how to learn keyboard shortcuts, etc. Fundamental functions had fixed home, save, and open under file, for example, and the way to access them was sufficiently similar. This was efficient. Learn one concept, apply it everywhere. Easy to use. Observe one system/program, operate all of them, and thus satisfying. My skills are transferable. Yeah, I mean, I do like in some sense I do agree because obviously when I'm using GIMP, I am very happy that I can go to that these things exist right here, right? I know that I'm going to see new and open recent and all those things. So yeah. Totally true. Today, I struggle with a lot of applications in very basic ways. In some incarnation of Outlook for iOS, for example, I couldn't figure out how to compose a new mail without scrutinizing every single element on the screen meticulously. The similar basic task of creating a new ticket in Jira once had me taking a long, hard survey of the entire screen before I figured out where the relevant button was, and that it was, in fact, a button. These are core functions of both applications, and someone with my background struggling to find them isn't exactly a testament to overall improvement in usability. I feel like, again, we're using bad examples. Like, Jira's just a bad experience, you know? I've never got done using Jira and been like, you know what, boys? I had a good time using Jira. You know, I created a quick burn down chart, did a little JQL, got pretty good at doing a little bit of dynamic searching and all that. Like, that's never been my experience. I've never left that feeling, being happy. So I just don't think, I like, in some sense I agree, but the way you said it makes you sound like a complete like boomer, but like not in the boomer as in you're just old, but it is in like my grandma who was like, I don't even know what a cell phone is, right? Anyways, being able to quickly discern window focus isn't a mere aesthetic preference. When I was running Windows 10 on a multi-screen setup, I often came back to my computer from lunch or a meeting and started typing, but no text would appear where I expected it, and then I had to hunt across screens to locate the window, which did in fact have focus. This ventures way past ease of task accomplishment and well into safety territory, accidentally spreading sensitive information to the wrong audience, for example. Again, I'm not so sure about this one. Again, I feel like this just isn't one, right? One thing that I find helpful is just having a good manager, right? A good window manager means that the thing that's on the screen in front of me is the thing I type into. Like I don't have somewhere else to type. Okay. Focus stealing pop-ups are my biggest enemy. True. I've literally sent my password to my coworker on Teams. You sent big tits 69420 bang to your coworker. That sucks, man. You should definitely try a different window manager. You know, Windows, it's a great operating system. It just lacks a good a window manager. I've done it too many times. Really? That's so funny. I think I've done it once in my entire lifetime. Okay, maybe this is a more frequent problem than I realize, but I also haven't used Windows in a long time. Right? This guy's a well-actually guy, potentially. Yes, these are both anecdotal accounts, but solutions to both of these problems have been known and implemented for a long time. Let's see, these existing solutions were then removed on mere whims, and replacements have yet to materialize. This is not progress. At least, let's see. Well, actually, I actually don't know. Is that true? I mean, so I just clicked on, like, I have a Windows machine for my stream. I just clicked on something. The window that is in focus has a darker outline and shadows around it. Is that what he means? But I mean, I agree, because I believe old Windows used to have gray for the top bar and blue for the thing that was active, right? And so I could see that being like, it's less of a visual cue. You have less visual cue for sure. So, understandable. I can see this being a bit of a struggle. It's much more subtle than it used to be. True. Yeah, exactly. It used to be very, very obvious. Now it's a bit like not as obvious, right? Okay. Anyways, finally, I understand it's tempting to dismiss my views as those of some old codger unable to get with the times. In some ways, I freely admit that it's an accurate assessment. But is that really an argument for the current UI paradigm? Surely. The point of all the alleged usability research being carried out today isn't to make experienced power users feel downright stupid. Surely the goal of usability shouldn't be to rob such users of time-tested, well-researched, efficient, effective, safe, and satisfying ways to do things. And surely, don't call me Shirley! If the modern UI paradigm is in fact well-established, well-researched, and efficient, UIs wouldn't change so damn much all the time. So I'm going to make a counter-argument to this, which is that generations and how they perceive stuff changes, right? So what makes sense at one point in time no longer makes sense anymore. The introduction of new technologies fundamentally change how new UIs are created. So I'd assume that phones and iPads have had a huge impact with usability and how things are like supposed to be used, because it introduced an entire new set of concepts that are being transferred over to other platforms because some X amount of people use things in a certain way, right? I just think that I'm not convinced that just because something used to work means it will continue to work. But the call button still looks like a classic telephone. True. You just got me, right? For some reason, UIs in Asian countries are so different. Yeah, have you ever been to a Japanese website? There's like text everywhere, right? Isn't that what they're commonly known for? Is just not, yeah. Japanese websites are known for just like intense amount of just stuff on the screen. So who's wrong then? Are the Japanese wrong, or are the Americans right? Notice that I said the same thing twice. That's because America is right. Get right, people. Do what America does. USA, right? There you go. America's always right. It's the children who are wrong. Anyways, Japanese websites are shit. Anything non-American is wrong. Hell yeah. The UX, UI, UX is wrong. Again, I don't know if again. So that's one of the problems is that, you know, if Japanese content is so much different than ours, then does that mean that these are well proven, well researched, efficient, and all these kind of fun things, or is it kind of the perception of the time and place and people, right? Isn't that really what we're talking about here? That's my guess, is that times are changing underneath this guy, and some of the changes aren't good. Like, I do agree, I liked when they used to have the blue window bar for the tab that was selected and the grayed out window bar for when the tab wasn't selected, because it was very easy. I do, Discord bait, I forgot to mute Discord. Like, I totally think that stuff was great. And so I do appreciate some of the, some other parts of UI design that have kind of gone away. I think the modern emptiness can sometimes be a bit annoying to look for, because it feels like not all icons are understandable. In fact, there was even an argument that, I forget who it was. I want to say it was even David. I think it was even our designer at terminal.shop said that, like, you shouldn't even have your mouse button shouldn't even change over a button. It should be like so minimal that the button shouldn't highlight or give you any feedback or anything. It should just be this way and that's it, right? And it's just like, for me, that's very confusing. So I'm not sure if I purchase all design changes that are going on. I don't think I like that. Anyways, the name is the Primogen.